And welcome back to the starting lineup. It's walk-off time, and leading off today with his 53rd birthday, we have Steve Bishop with another cursed story.
Actually, it's my 23rd birthday, George. Thank you very much. Baseball icons love curses. Jaded writers have written books and made millions off of said curses. The Fox television network loved taunting my beloved Cubbies and the Red Sox with talk of curses during last year's playoffs. So it is with much apologies to our humble host that I point out a curse worse than the Bambino and the Goat combined. I bring you the curse of the Tokyo Dome. The Yankees and Devil Rays have already begun their season in the House of the Rising Sun. While it is a good PR move for baseball and the Yankees, their season is over. Allow me to explain. Back in 2000, the Cubs and Mets went to Japan to play a two-game series before opening day. When they came back to the Midland, the Cubs tanked, finishing last in the NL Central. The Mets, while making the World Series, got blasted by that other New York team and have never been the same since then. Now, no disrespect to the country of Japan. It's a great country. I've never been there, but I've heard it's a great country. But, George, I hate to say it, your season is over.
Steve, we don't believe in curses in New York. I'm sorry to say. It's an excuse you...
I don't believe in curses either. So.
Anyways, let's move on. Jerry, what do you got for us today?
Well, thank you, George. My topic comes down to those 90% of fans that everybody knows comes to the game and make complete idiots of themselves. I recently came to a headway with me as I went to the MHTV playoffs in the end of March. Now, the problem that I realized is that most fans, when they come to games, think that they pay their money and they're entitled to sit there and make berated idiots of themselves as they sit there and scream at the officials. Now, I realized this with the four gentlemen that sat behind me recently at the games because they didn't really have any idea what they were talking about, and I think that's a problem that society faces and has been facing recently at these professional and amateur sporting events. A lot of the fans that come have no idea. It's one thing to sit there and scream and be happy for your team when they do good, and there may be a bad call to go against them. But to sit there and berate officials over and over and over again over calls is not your job. The officials are not there to purposely make mistakes. If you look at officials, 97% of the time they make good calls. It's that 3% that's really controversial that are out there that officials screw up. If that's in any other profession out there, the 96% pass rate would lead to promotions. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a good point you make there. Paul, what do you have for us today?
New head football coach Brian Kelly could have very easily come into Mount Pleasant and made excuses. He could have told us that he was inheriting a team in serious need of rebuilding by citing a lack of talent, size, or even desire, and painted this team for dead while waiting for his own recruits to come in and take over. What Kelly did, however, is the exact opposite. He took what former coach Mike DeBoard left him and immediately made it his own. Second-team All-MAC safety James King will move to linebacker this year, where by being closer to the ball, it will be okay for him to lead the team in tackles. This should help shore up the nation's third-worst defense from a year ago. Also making moves are Joe Staley and Isaac Brown. Staley is moving from tight end to tackle, where he will start, and Brown is changing the color of his practice jersey by moving from running back to safety. This is very reminiscent of a transformation that took place at a little school called Notre Dame in the mid-1980s. After Jerry Faust ran college football's most storied program into the ground, a fiery little man from the South, Lou Holtz, was hired to wake the sleeping giant. Like Kelly, Holtz did not give himself an out just in case things didn't go well right away. Instead, he took the team under his wing immediately by putting Faust's recruits in other positions, most notably moving Ricky Waters to tailback, a move that worked out pretty well for both sides. Holtz's plan worked, and in his third year he had a national championship. While nobody expects a national championship out of Kelly and the Chippewas, a return to the top of the MAC would be nice. Now Kelly will admit that instituting a new offense and a new attitude is a process, but a trip to spring practices shows that the team is buying into what Kelly is saying. The practices are highly intense and energetic. Players are playing with more fire, and the defense is starting to look less like Mount Pleasant High School junior varsity. This is a stark contrast from last year's practices, where drills and scrimmages seem mechanical and players look to be going through the motions. Hopefully next year that change in attitude will lead to more notches in the win column, but if not, don't look to Kelly for excuses.
Thanks, Paul. A tearful Todd Pertuzzi apologized to Colorado Steve Moore for his blindside attack that left Moore with a broken neck, a concussion, and a deep cut on his face. Fortunately, Moore walked out of the hospital only 10 days after he got his face rubbed into the ice. If you thought that the Detroit and Colorado rivalry was dying, a new one has now risen between the Avs and Canucks. As Claude Lemieux's hit on Chris Draper began the Detroit rivalry, Moore delivered a hit on Canuck captain Marcus Naslund last month that put him out for 3 games with a severe concussion. Now, hockey has always been a sport where we all have embraced with fighting and violent hits. But with the league in such turmoil with ratings, markets, and money, can they really afford to continue to keep the fighting image? Absolutely not. This is why the punishment to Bertuzzi is not harsh enough. He has been suspended indefinitely for the rest of the season and the playoffs, and possibly next season, if there's going to be a season, pending another hearing. Todd Bertuzzi deserves to be banished from the NHL for his hit on Steve Moore. It was a cowardly, premeditated act against a smaller player. What makes it worse is that he even went after Moore behind and delivered a hit that could have killed him. The NHL believes punishment they delivered will get through its players, but they have to send a stronger message that this behavior will not be allowed in hockey. Todd, you may have sold everyone else with your teary eyes and your apologies, but just remember, Mr. Bertuzzi, what goes around comes around. Well, thank you for joining us this evening on the starting lineup. For Paul, Steve, and Jared, I'm your host, George Kokos. MHTV Vault is coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Have a good night.